right, welcome everybody to this grand opening of our Reo Elections Office. So exciting. Thank you all for being here. Today is really the start of the presidential primary election. We are mailing out over 7,500 absent voter ballots today. Today is the first day that people can be guaranteed to walk into their clerk's office across the state and pick up an absentee ballot. And that means right here today, voters can come in and pick up their ballot. So this will also be one of the first years. Well, Michigan is starting with early voting, and this election will be the first statewide election where we do have early voting in Michigan. Lansing, we were lucky enough to pilot it in November and help work out the kinks in a local election where it wasn't required to be done, but we wanted to do that. So it's still a very new thing. Similar to Election Day, a voter can walk in, fill out an application to vote, get their ballot, and vote that ballot and put in a tabulator. And it's safe and secure. And it's statewide for at least 9 days for every statewide and federal election. And for the city of Lansing, we will have 2 sites for this February election. One will be here just down the hall in a couple of the classrooms that connect to each other. So interesting to be in a former elementary school. By the way, I get the principal's office and the principal's parking spot, all right? Trying to learn how to use the PA system and the bells. We moved here because exciting news for the city of Lansing. A couple years ago, our voters approved a bond for a new public safety complex that will house our police, fire, and courts. Once they did the full space needs, they determined not only did they need the former McLaren parking lot, but they needed the former armory, which was where I had housed my election office for over a decade. So we're glad to be partnering with the Lansing School District to use former Reo Elementary, now is the Reo Elections Office, for the foreseeable future. As our election office, and it is a convenient spot. It's just off MLK, Cattle Route number 9, so people can get here, and it has walking paths into some of the nearby neighborhoods. We have been here about a month. I think a little bit, maybe a couple days more than a month. We don't yet have internet. We're using telephone things on the computers to hook up, and if we want to print, we have to put it on a thumb drive and take it to the copier and put the thumb drive into the copier because we don't have a network here yet. But we're working on it, and we're glad to be co-located with some great partners here. We miss our partners that were with us at the South Washington location 311 because they answer so many city phone calls and are great at providing voter information to people who call in. So they're here, but they're supporting us, but they're no longer our neighbors. But we are co-located with Lansing Promise that provides scholarships for Lansing students. So I'm glad to be near them. The city's Office of Financial Empowerment is also just moved into this building. And then, what could be more fun than the all of the above hip hop academy? They even have a DJ class. I'm like, maybe I should take that. I think I would be a good DJ. But it's a lot of customer-facing things, voter-facing, public-facing entities that are here. So we're hoping that this will be a synergistic hub of activity, and we're glad to be a part of it. So I do want to invite a couple of partners here to make some comments. And first, and always on the top of my list, is my state senator, Sarah Anthony.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Look at the home training. Typically when I ask folks to say good afternoon or good morning, they just stare at me. But I'm not at the Capitol, I'm in the community, so it's nice. Thank you all for being here. Chris, thank you for inviting me. Our community is very blessed. We have some of the best clerks in the state of Michigan. Chris Swope has led the charge in piloting some of these innovative ways to make sure that people's voices are heard on election day and all the days that include election day now. And Clerk Bart Byram has become a statewide voice of reason and logic, and really, tackling many of the misinformations and lack of facts that have come in the last few years around the safety and security of our elections. So thank you both for your work in making sure that we continue to have great elections in the state of Michigan and in the best city in the state, Lansing. As you know, I serve as state senator for Mid-Michigan, and it's an honor to be here today for two reasons. One, this is my old elementary school. This is where I spent lots of time, no time in the principal's office, absolutely no time in the principal's office, but eating lunch in the cafeteria, learning with some of my favorite teachers, and it's a special place. And as we know, many of our schools have been repurposed for good. And what better way to continue the legacy of making sure that a community anchor like an elementary school continues to be utilized for something positive. This is a really exciting day. I will tell you, the first year as state senator, which was last year, was a pretty transformational one. We finally were able to lift up the voices of men, women, and children in the state. And a big thing that we did was promoted voting and making sure that we were passing transformational legislation that increased access to the right to vote. Let me tell you a few things that we did. We worked with our clerks and election officials to make policies that they were advocating for years a reality, like using your student or military ID to identify yourself at the polls, joining the permanent absentee ballot list, enjoying prepaid postage on your elections, on the applications and envelopes, and making voting easier than ever. When my grandmother started to talk about the importance of voting, it drew back from generation to generation in which women and people of color, so many of us did not have that right. And so she instilled in me and my family that it was not only our right, it was our responsibility. And it's much easier than it ever has been to do just that, to vote. But we didn't just stop with the policies. In addition to being the state senator for this area, I also serve as the appropriations chairwoman. Appropriations is a big fancy way to say, I help to craft the state's budget. They put us over the money. And a part of that is listening to our elections officials about what we need to make voting more accessible. And so Clerk Swope came into our office and said, we need money for places like this to make sure that we are connecting people with the resources they need to vote. So I helped to lead the charge to allocate $1 million to the Lansing City Clerk's office and other large communities, including for Grand Rapids and for Ann Arbor. And these funds will help support our election workers and clerks, ensuring that they have the resources they need to implement the many changes that we made in the legislature. It's a huge first step. $1 million is nothing to sneeze at. It's your tax dollars at work, and we have to make sure we're being good stewards of those dollars. But I can't think of another more important thing that we can actually use those dollars for than to make sure that people are able to have a say in who is governing at the local, state, and at the federal levels. So thank you for the opportunity to serve as your senator and to serve as a loud, and I do have a big voice, so a loud champion for voting. So can I vote today?
You sure can.
Oh, I probably will go over and vote today, and I'm just excited to be able to be here. So I don't know who's next on the agenda. Is it Clerk Byram?
Nope.
Okay, well, I'm just going to sit down, but thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. Next, we're actually going to hear from one of our community partners. Maria Starr from LACLA has a great, inspiring story to tell. I always screw it up, so tell us
That's
what
all right.
LACLA is.
That's okay.
The acronym.
Hi, LACLA is Labor Council for Latin American Advancement. We've been around, our chapter was reactivated in 2000. And being involved in this chapter, along with Coalition of Labor Union Women, is CLU, A. Philip Randolph Institute, APRI, we work together in the community and we pass out information, nonpartisan, throughout the city. As I was, when I first joined this, at the time I had no idea that when I turned 18, I could have registered to vote. When I was young, I used to stay up and see who was our next president. And I remember I asked my mom if she voted. And she said no, that only people that owns homes vote. And so I remember when I was working at the plant and everybody was talking, did you vote today? Did you vote today? And everybody said yes. And they asked me and I lied through my teeth. I said yes, because I was so embarrassed. And I looked at them, I said, oh my God, these people are so young and they own homes. I better start saving my money more so I can buy me a house. So when I bought my house, I registered to vote. The thing is, what I realized, what I learned from the constituency groups is that my mom could have voted, but since she did not know how to read English, that's why she didn't vote. My mom and my dad both had, my mom had 4th grade education and my dad 6th grade education, so they worked all their lives, you know, making our ends meet, taking care of us. But that's one thing. They didn't know anything about politics or how things work and, you know, stuff like that. So being involved, I've learned a lot. So now that we have young students from high school, all of us, you can say we can mentor the kids. We tell them about voting. We tell them about scholarship and grade point averages. Because I didn't know anything about grade point averages either. I didn't know what that meant. So now, as of today, when we still have our youngsters help us out, do the literature drop to pass out information through our community, they'll ask questions, and we're there and we talk to them. You could say we are their mentors, and we hope for them to continue to be involved in our community too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so inspiring to hear that, and there's so many myths out there. You know, one thing that people don't realize in Michigan, returning citizens who have been incarcerated, as soon as they are out of prison, they can vote. We worked on some new legislation last year to make some of that voter registration automatic when they leave prison. So that'll be implemented in coming years. So next to speak to us is a representative of the Secretary of State, her Chief of Staff, Tina Anderson.
Hello, everybody. What an exciting day this is for Lansing. My name is Tina Anderson. I'm here on behalf of Secretary Jocelyn Benson, and I'm new to her office. I've been with the office since October, and Clerk Swope's name has come up several times, and every time it comes up, it's paired with the word innovator. That is the word that I keep hearing when we talk about the work of the clerk in Lansing. You know, clerks have done an enormous amount of heavy lifting over the past couple of years. We've had, you know, a global pandemic where we broke the state's voter turnout record, 5.5 million votes. 3.3 of those were absentee ballots. I'm sure the clerks remember that vividly. And then the voters came out and they demanded more voting rights, right? We had Proposal 2, and now we have, as the clerk mentioned, 9 days of early voting. In addition to permanent absentee ballot lists and a laundry list of new things that if I read all of them, there would be no time for other folks to share their comments as well. There's a specific story, though, about Chris Swope that my colleagues shared with me. Into 2020, Chris was already doing ballot tracking for his district. That when you put in your absentee ballot into the mail, you know, it used to be that you kind of just hoped and prayed that it got counted, right? You knew the system would work, but you didn't have the receipt, right? And now we have a system where you can, when you turn in your ballot, you can track it and see where it is in the process and be confident of that. But one of the things that happened was the Secretary of State's office and advocates heard about this practice that Chris had put forward, and it got into the formal drafting of Proposal 2 because it had already been tried. He mentioned how he was literally the first to raise his hand and say, we are going to try early voting in the fall. And thanks to the learnings that went from the pilot, we now have been able to communicate, and I'm sure there's been a lot of communication between the clerks too, for the 1,500 other clerks across the state that are getting ready to pilot early voting and do it for the first time statewide in February. And we are about to shift from election day to election days, right? Where you can vote on a Tuesday, you can vote on a Thursday, you can vote on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's a big change for all of us, and we're so grateful to the work that the clerks are doing and that poll workers are doing to be ready for that. I also want to congratulate Clerk Swope on the opening of this beautiful election office. What a beautiful privilege it is to be a part of here today and see an elementary school that raised leaders like Senator Anthony turning into a place that services voters and all of the community needs for the clerk. It's so inviting, it's bright and colorful, it's a space that we all feel safe. And so thank you so much for all of the work that has gone into the past couple years in guiding us through election challenges, whether that's from the political side and all of the questions and misinformation that we've had to navigate, to the innovation side, where there have been not only leaders that are pushing us on how to make voting more accessible, more safe, more secure, more for us to participate, to the legislative changes that have been driven by our amazing partners in the legislature. Early voting starts Monday, February 12th. Is that right? In Lansing? 17th. I'm sorry. It starts statewide, 17th. I'm so sorry.
Right? Let me double check.
Correct. That was the one thing I needed to get right? 17th.
Saturday the 17th.
It starts Saturday the 17th statewide. You can visit michigan.gov/vote if you have questions because someone tells you the wrong information about when early voting starts. You can find your polling place and you can learn more about voting in Michigan. Thank you so much for all of your work.
Thank you. All right. Next, I want to introduce my partner in not crime. My partner in running safe, secure, and accurate elections, County Clerk Barb Byram.
So thank you all so much for showing up to support local clerks. Clerks have been planning and preparing for a challenging year, and an unplanned relocation was probably not on Clerk Swope's bingo card. Fun fact, however, while some clerks may say that they feel underwater with all of the new changes coming in 2024, Clerk Swope is the only one whose office was literally underwater this week, right? Throughout all of these new election-related policies and procedures, the clerk community stands together to ensure that the voting process is smooth and seamless for all voters. Clerk Swope and I are constantly in contact, text message, emails, like all of the channels, constantly.
Don't call her, just text me.
Yeah, just text message. Phones aren't for talking. In constant contact as we prepare for 2024. And we are committed to continuing to provide safe and secure elections for the residents of Lansing. While the location of Clerk Swope's office may have changed, what won't change is the excellent service that Lansing voters can continue to expect from the clerk and his team. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have to give us some words is Rachel Privat from the Disability Rights Michigan. She's a voter engagement specialist. Thank you.
Hi. So happy to be here today as a Lansing voter, as a person with a disability, and as a representative of Disability Rights Michigan. We're the state's protection and advocacy agency, which means that we are mandated and responsible for advocating for people with disabilities in all areas of life, from age, birth to death, and that includes voting. And my job as the voting engagement specialist involves training election workers, working with local elections officials, and working with voters to make sure that people have access to the vote. Clerk Swope's office has been incredibly proactive and generous in their work with us. They've provided us space to film training videos. They've supported us in registration efforts along with Clerk Byram, and have been very supportive and proactive in making sure that all Michiganders and all people in Lansing have the right to access their vote as they choose. And we appreciate so much being included today.
All right, and let's hear from Donna Mullins from the League of Women Voters. Oh, there you are. She's our Lansing area chapter president.
Hi, the League of Women Voters has been around for over 100 years, 25 years actually, more than I have. And what we are is about voting and about connecting people with a vote. The League began from the suffragettes. So once we got the vote, they had to do something. So they started the League of Women Voters. And as such, we are so proud to be able to work with all of the clerks, and especially Chris. There are a lot of wonderful clerks. There are clerks as good as Chris, but there are none better. And we're really happy to work with them. And we're also happy to work with Brian. Not only do we help with registration and stuff, but our great joy every year, and Maria will vouch for this, is going to Trunk or Treat, Souls to the Polls, where we give treats to kids, have kids vote in mock elections, give parents a chance to vote, and it's just a wonderful thing. So the community service that is done by this great clerk's office is just amazing and a thrill to be a part of. And thank you very much, Chris, for your work.
Thank you. All right. Some of the comments, I'm going to have to put people on payroll. This was so good. I couldn't.
Please do.
You know, and that's one of the questions with this space. How are we going to do trunk or treat? We don't have the geography. So on the list of things to figure out. And now I want to recognize our landlord from the Lansing School District, Superintendent Ben Schuldner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and privilege to be here for two reasons. One is, as the superintendent of the Lansing School District, we are thrilled that we can partner with the clerk's office to make sure that all of our facilities are used thoughtfully. As we think about what's always best for children, we want to make sure that they're in schools that are vibrant and full. And when you're looking sometimes at buildings that maybe are a little bit empty, you have to start to think about, well, what's the best use of that facility? And rather than let it lay fallow, be on a corner somewhere and get graffitied, you think about, well, what else could be very powerful for the city? And we immediately thought to partner with the Promise, which is the scholarship fund that helps to send kids to college. And then when they became kind of an anchor tenant, we started to say to the city, well, you know, we know you're doing stuff, you know, what do you want to do? We talked to the clerk's office, and we've been so thankful that Chris and the team said, you know what, let's be part of this. And so, as you know, many polling sites are schools, and they can use the gym as a practice. They can show people how to use facilities like schools to vote, and we're just thrilled to be part of this. And they have been such a wonderful, wonderful partner. They pay their rent on time. That's awesome. We were happy to give them internet, but they need to have their own internet. There's security issues. We understand, but to be able to be thinking what's best for our children and the community and putting together something like this is powerful. But then there's the second piece, which is probably even more important, is it's often been said that the best defense of democracy is a well-educated populace. Well, that's kind of my job, right? And it's our job, is that we want to make sure that every child that comes to Lansing School District is well educated, so they never question that they can vote at 18, that they never question that they don't have to own property, that they don't have to do something else, that they, as citizens, as part of the Lansing firmament, get to have their voice known. And so it's certainly our responsibility to be part of that education, but it's all of our responsibility. And I can't think of a better clerk to help support this entire community, to get people to vote, to have their voice, and have it be listened to. So it's a pleasure.
All right,
Thank you.
All right. So that's enough talking. Let's get to ribbon cutting. We're going to have, in addition to the speakers, we're going to have Scott Bean from the mayor's office, Veronica Johnson from the Coalition of Labor Union Women, Betty Berry from the Greater Lansing Area Club of Business and Professional Women's Club. That's a mouthful. And Rachel Willis, the president of our Lansing Board of Education.
And my amazing
So our
boss.
co-landlord.
Oh, it's,
So without these partners, we could not do what we do. And I've been remiss also without my staff who are here, Brian, Robin, and all the other folks, and all of our election workers. We have hundreds of election workers that work with us. And they'll be trained here, so it'll still be kind of a school. We've already had a training with 60 folks at one time, so it's working out great. All right, so with that, ready? 3, 2, 1.
oh, fantastic.